I'm Harvey from DK and we're here with the super recognisable Morgan shape. Now this Morgan, not everybody might know, is the Morgan GTR. It's the most powerful, it's the fastest, and arguably it's the rarest of Morgan's many sports cars. They made 9 of them, and we're lucky enough to have this car, one of only 3 right-hand drive GTRs, coming to sale on a Carhuna auction. And we're stood next to one Mog, which, as you can see, the inspiration for this GTR has come from this Morgan, which is widely known to be one of the most successful Morgan race cars of all time, and it's been owned from new by Graham Bryant, joined here with his son Oliver, who's going to tell us a little bit about how this Morgan and its racing history came to be. So Graham, you'd had a Morgan before this car, which is where the colour scheme came from?
Yeah, I bought a Moss Blocks Plus 8 in '72, which was the Earls Court motorshade car, in these colours, which is Jaguar Azure Blue is the pale blue, and Triumph Royal Blue is the wing colour. And I had that for a few years, and then I ordered this. In those days, they took about 4 years or 5 years to arrive once you order them. So I ordered this, which was then the latest Plus 8 5-speed gearbox, one of the very first of the 5-speed gearbox cars, with a 3.5 litre Rover engine, which I used as a road car. And then soon after buying it, I entered races, club races, Bentley Drivers Club, this sort of thing.
And so obviously, I've got here a copy of the January 1987 auto car. So by which point you'd had the car about a decade. And the car's on the front cover here, 145 miles an hour. The Morgan eats Porsches. How did that come about?
Well, we were racing in a lot of races at that time, maybe 25, 30 weekends a year. And a lot of the races that we were in were against Porsches, Ferraris, and we were successful in the car. And we won, I think, the majority of races that we entered during a 2 or 3 year period. So the Autocar took an interest in it and wanted to do an article with a blast of a headline, which was the Morgan that eats Porsches.
But the facts speak for themselves. For 50 odd years, you have been beating more sophisticated, newer machinery in a V8 Morgan. And then in the early 2000s, Ollie, you took part in the British GT Championship in a V8 Morgan of its day. Was that one of 3 cars they built?
Yeah, the Aero 8, which I raced in 2005 and 2006. That was in the British GT Championship, and we were competing regularly against Porsche Cup cars and Ferrari Challenge cars, it was before the GT3 era, so it was the car of its time. And yeah, we had several class wins over those years and came runner-up in the championship. So that was in the aluminium chassis, so the update of the Plus 8, the all-new chassis of the Aero 8, which bonded aluminium, which is in fact the same chassis that's ended up in the
GTR.
The GTR, yeah.
So yeah, 2005, you're beating Porsches and Ferraris in a V8 engine Morgan, and I guess that's the whole point of the theme of the GTR. So I guess you were invited to buy the GTR. It wasn't available on the market. There was never actually a review. There was never much press about it. So how did that come about?
Well, the Morgan factory were very interested in having this car at their visitor centre. It's sort of a museum at the factory. So we put this car with them, and at that time, they spoke to us about the fact that they were going to do a limited run of these very, very special Morgans, and asked us if we were interested in, being one of the customers.
And basically, there were 9 chassis left. That was it. There were 9 chassis left. 3 right-hand drive, the other 6 left-hand drive, and I think I'm right in thinking that there's only 2 of those right-hand drive in manual, which is kind of the point of a big V8 engined Morgan, is to have the big engine, the simple light car, and of course manual gearbox. Immediately when you jump in this car, it's sort of strangely familiar as a classic car. You sort of look over the wings, the louvers in the bonnet, you've got these sort of plexiglass windows. So initially you think you're in a sort of a Plus 8, but actually when you look at the dials and you look at the steering wheel, everything feels modernised. The gauges, the rev counter, the speedo, everything's perfect and modern. And of course, being new, this car is 520 miles from new. Everything still feels perfect, everything still feels brand new. The visibility is fantastic out of this screen. Of course, as remarked on in that magazine article on Graham's One Mog, it's a strangely unaerodynamic shape, so this upright windscreen gives you quite an interesting perspective of the road ahead. But the driving position's very nice. You're sat quite upright, but the steering wheel's right to hand, and there's gear shifter down here with its short throw 6-speed gearbox. Feels very neatly to hand. The car weighs just a little over 1,000 kilos, which for a modern car standards is really incredibly light. 4.8 litre V8 produces around 400 horsepower, which means that it absolutely shifts. And of course the soundtrack provided by that V8 twin rear exit exhaust pipes is, well, name me a petrol head that doesn't enjoy the sound of a big V8. 9 cars were built, 3 in right-hand drive, just 2 with this wonderful manual gearbox. And at 9 cars built, I think it makes it rarer than any other supercar that's been launched in the last 20 years. There's no other manufacturer that would make cars in such small numbers. The reason it's 9 is there was just 9 chassis left, Aero 8 chassis left at the end of production in order to make this special commemorative one-off. It never really went to the market. The magazine articles, the TV programs never really covered it because they sold all 9 cars to Morgan collectors and enthusiasts such as Graham and Ollie. So really, I don't think anybody's managed to get their hands on one. This car, one of the 3 UK right-hand drive cars, is going to be auctioned in a Carhuna online auction. It's a DK sale, but powered online by Carhuna.